The scent is my boy's. Have you seen him? Pax shared the most important features of his human: the naked round ears, the towering legs, so improbably long that Pax always feared he would topple over when he ran, the black curled hair that grew to different lengths, then became short again. No humans are here, but they are approaching. Just then, Bristle's head rose as if jerked on an unseen wire. Her ears pricked, trained on the slight rustling in the nearby tuft of broomsedge. Her rear began to twitch, gather energy. She sprang high and then, paws tight over her black nose, dived into the grass with a flash of a white-tipped tail. Pax sat up in alert. In a second, Bristle's head reappeared, and in her jaws was a wood rat. She leaped clear of the grass, bit through the rat's neck, and then dropped it to the ground. Orphaned before he'd been weaned, Pax had never eaten raw prey. His hunger rose at the blood scent, and so did his curiosity. He took a cautious step closer. Bristle growled, and Pax retreated to watch from a safe distance. He grew hungrier as she crunched bites. He thought of the brimming comfort of his kibble bowl, the pleasure of Peter's hand-fed treats, and the ultimate reward, peanut butter. He needed to find his boy. His boy would feed him. Before he could ask about approaching humans, Bristle picked up what remained of the rat, a single hind leg with its long tail, and stalked off with it dangling from her jaw. Pax watched as she wove her way between grass tufts, becoming only flashes of flame and white. Leaving, he was swept by the memory of his human's car roaring away in its stinging spray of gravel. Just before she slipped into a fringe of ferns at the wood's edge, she paused to glance at him over her shoulder. At that moment, a sharp snap from the fallen oak startled her. It was followed by a red streak of fur that hurtled from the dry foliage, flew over the weeds, and landed on her back. Pax flattened himself. He could hear the vixen's yips as she scuffed with her attacker, but they sounded more irritated than afraid. He poked his head up. Bristle pounced on a ball of fur and bit it hard. To Pax's surprise, a smaller, skinnier version of herself unfurled at her paws. Pax was stunned. Never had he suspected that foxes might soar like birds whose swooping arcs were not like any movement he himself could achieve. The little fox flipped to his back and gave his belly in submission, but this seemed to only make Bristle angrier, her chattering now punctuated by jabs and nips. Pax bounded over, overcome by curiosity. The skinny fox startled at the unfamiliar human scent and looked over Bristle's shoulder. His eyes widened when he spied Pax, and then he scrambled to his paws. "Friendly," he announced to Pax. "Brother, but not littermate of the vixen. Play!" Bristle bared her teeth and snarled at her brother. "Dangerous. Stay away." Pax ignored Bristle's warning posture and met the greeting. "Friendly. You flew. Bird?" The little fox bounded back to the fallen oak, then sprang onto its trunk. One fork of the dead tree angled up. The small fox walked lightly along its length. He looked down to make sure Pax was watching. Pax dropped and tucked his paws under his chest, but it was hard to keep from leaping onto the tree to try it himself. He had climbed the walls of his pen, of course, but he'd never been higher than 6 feet. His brush twitched. The vixen stalked a few steps away and then dropped to the ground. She rolled on her side to gaze directly up at her brother. Her love for him obvious now. He was the runt. He is small, but he's tough. I don't want him with me when I hunt, but he follows me. She tossed her head and growled at Pax, as though blaming him for her brother's play. The runty little fox stepped out along the branch, tail poised for balance, then coiled himself and leapt out over the heads of the earthbound foxes. He landed in a clump of burdock beside the road, and then burst out covered in burrs. He tore around in mad circles, as if soaring had filled him with an excess of joy that had to be spent through his legs, and then flung himself onto the ground